Hi, everyone. Princess and I were just leaving a previous work group meeting, so I'm sure she'll be here in just a minute. I don't know if, oh, Rahul's already here. Okay, he got here faster than I did. So, and Agatha is here. Okay, so as soon as Princess is here, and we'll see how ever many else of you folks show up. Give it a few more minutes. Agatha, did you have the agenda that we were working on yesterday, or is Princess going to bring that with her?
Princess is coming. Hi, everyone. Princess is coming.
Yeah, we just left the same meeting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of long. Maybe she needs a, oh, there she is. I was going to say, maybe she needs a little break between meetings.
Back and forth meetings, story of our lives.
Yeah, pretty much.
Bob, I just did a very quick agenda.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm gonna put it in the chat.
Yeah. It's what we went through yesterday.
Yeah, and I'm like, do I really need a PowerPoint? We have some notes and stuff that I'll share with you, just you and Raul, but we don't have a structured PowerPoint, so because we don't have any new CE stuff. So so when we need to, like, we'll share our screen and look at Entrada and stuff like that versus, having an official PowerPoint, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, as long as that works for everyone here.
Yeah, it's kind of like
a lot of seasoned veterans here.
Yeah,
I think we almost have perfect attendance.
Oh, really?
Let's hope that's a good sign for this year.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't see gallery. I thought it was just you here, Bob. I didn't realize everyone's already here. Hi, everybody. Okay. So let me put the agenda back in the chat there. Let's see. Is Raul here yet? I think.
Yeah, he's here.
Okay. Awesome. The agendas in the chat. I'm sorry, I'm off camera. I have to choose between audio and video today. So it's great to see all of you all. I think so. Do we have everyone, Agatha? Is that what you said?
Almost. Yeah, almost perfect attendance.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Impressive. Yeah.
And is the assessment about to see Rita?
Yeah, Rita's here. We're expecting Jake. Jake is also here.
Oh, Jake is here too. Jake, are you doing you and Lauren doing the narrative assessment piece?
That was the plan.
Okay. Okay. I want you to the thing. Okay, so I think since we have everybody here, let me see, we can get started. So since as Bob said at the top of the hour, you guys are all seasoned now. And so this is for us to have a informal conversation about how the last year went, moving forward, what to expect in the fall, and whatever else is top of mind for you all in the upcoming year. So we're going to be sharing some updates as far as expectation on teaching for the fall, some use of technology, some logistics things, but also making sure that we're on the same page as far as some new developments with BCS and with narrative assessment. So with further ado, I'll turn it over to Raul to start us off.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. I'll keep my little piece short. I just wanted to thank everyone, first of all, for doing a wonderful job in what was perhaps the most tumultuous year of this curriculum, maybe even more so than the first one. You know, putting everything in Zoom was very challenging, and it was hard for everybody. So thank you so much for dealing with that. Not that any of us had any other alternative. The future, we don't know what's going to happen. The plan is that everyone's going to be on campus in the fall, but there's that recent paper out saying that our Pfizer vaccine only has 42% effectiveness against Delta variant. So who knows what's going to happen in the future? So we should be prepared for everything, but hopefully we'll get some sort of booster shot and be able to plow straight ahead. Really, I wanted to spend this time just to maybe summarize as a group, what do we think went well? What do we think we should be doing differently for the upcoming year, and whatever thoughts that you have, bigger picture type stuff. So you go ahead and put stuff in the chat if you want, or just unmute, and this is your chance to vent as well. Yeah, Christine said she misses faculty development and bonding with other CEs. So hopefully we'll be able to do some of that again. But
I would just, in response to Christine, for any of you who have specific faculty development topics that you think are important, I don't, not that we have anything particular planned right now, but if we want to try and plan something, if you have specific ideas about what you would like to have for faculty development, that would be great.
Yeah, and we are trying to, in the works, put together some faculty development for some of the advocate sessions, since a lot of them are new this year. So folks who are signed up for the advocate sessions, definitely stay tuned for a communication about that too.
so let me answer some of the questions that were here in the chat. I think let's come back to Keith's question about the pre-work thing, because I think that's an important thing. The other two are a little bit shorter ones that I can quickly answer. Are there any new CEs this year? No, there are not any new CEs. And I'm sure all of you have probably heard through your departments that there's a compensation scheme that is going through Rush that is fairly confusing to me, at least. And so they are being a lot stricter with the way that FTE is being given out, and really holding us to that. If you get 20%, you should be being 200 hours worth of work. And we have to kind of prove that is relevant. So we said, okay, let's say each session is 4 hours long, which is a generous estimate, I think, because it's not, right? There's sessions that are 1 hour or 2 hours. And let's say that each session, maybe prep work, is about 4 hours, which I think for most people is perhaps around the average. And there are a lot of people who can prepare very quickly. Me, I take like 8 hours to prepare for one of those basic science sessions. But then again, that might be coupled with a role session that's only like a 30-minute prep time. So I thought that maybe 4 hours was a fair number. So that means we're saying 8 hours per session. And if we have to do 2 hours of them, that came out to 50 sessions, which is why that number 50 is the way that it is. It did bump up to 52 because we have some people going on FMLA potentially, and we just wanted to be able to protect those people instead of having to hire someone else new. But we may also try to get a couple, pinch hitters in there that maybe we can help train them as well. And so if someone needs to step out for something, we have someone there who can pick up some of the slack. So I know it looks like the amount of, it doesn't look like it actually is, like the amount of required session has been going up year to year to year, right? I think it started out as 39, then 42, then 46, and now 50. Part of that is because we have to be strict about the numbers now and kind of report them out and say, this is why, here's our justification. Any questions about that, or should I move on to the next one? Okay, I'll take silence to mean no questions. Is the current game plan, Melissa, to put 8 groups in the same room again? Bob is going to talk about this, I'm sure, a little bit more at some point, but we're going to have at least one group that is going to be off campus, right? And I think at this point, we're thinking that that's going to be a rotating one. So group one, the first, and then group two, then group three, because we're going to have some people who are going to, for whatever reason, not be able to come to campus, and we need to be able to help those people out. And there may even be some clinician educators who really can't come. So that's why we'll have one. But otherwise, the plan is, everyone will be there. Mita says smaller, short sessions were better for Zoom burnout. 100% agree, and less exposure. Syed said, while we did all get evaluations from our sessions, what is your feeling about how the students perceive the sessions live and on Zoom? Any big issues that they focused on? I'm sure Rita can perhaps speak better to this, but my overview is that the students really liked the live sessions. They much preferred being in person than they did on Zoom. Zoom was hard to do, especially when they had a day that was mostly Zoom, or sessions that were extraordinarily long, or there were things that were maybe not really conducive to doing on Zoom. Rita, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
Nope, that's exactly it. Anytime there was a session in person, all of the comments were along the lines of, oh my God, this was so amazing because it was in person.
Yeah, I mean, this curriculum was designed to be in person, and so that's why it kind of works better that way. All right, Teresa said, I definitely think in person worked better as a new person coming. There was some venting that, you're right. In person is definitely better for everyone. And maybe we can go to a bar, maybe we can go to Park Taverns outside thing. We'll just reserve it one day. Okay. The general consensus is that in person is better than virtual. Okay. And so now let's talk about the pre-work stuff that Keith, so did you need more context about what you're asking there?
I was just noting that I think moving some of the more black and white stuff that didn't require discussion to pre-work was a really positive thing, and that we should continue to try to do that.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I think the students also felt like that too. There were things that they didn't necessarily felt like they needed to be in a group to complete. And so those things perhaps they can do at home. Our goal is, as we move forward, maybe to move things, the activities that the clinician educators are strong at, to be taught by the clinician educators, and that's the clinical reasoning, case management, and a lot of the role type sessions. And somehow, Bob's working on some ideas too of how we can perhaps, offset some of the questions about pathology or biochemistry, genetics to those. Maybe it doesn't even have to happen in the session. So we're looking at some other ideas that might be able to maybe even decrease the amount of time that students need to spend in class. Joanna Cupia, I think, had a similar idea for that as well. All right,
There are also some of the sessions, depending on the session, did the students like some of the way in which the activities were done online versus on ground? For example, it would have been it was a poorly scored course and like tanked last year, but then this year it was well received. So some of the sessions, it was interesting to see like some of the ways that we delivered the activity and using the types of technology versus paper that we did on campus. Students seem to respond more positively to that delivery method than using some of the ways that we delivered the activity.
Yeah, very good point. I want to take my hat off to two groups of people for making that happen. One is Princess and her team, and then the other is Keith and his team, which was Keith, Scott, and who else is on your team?
Brett Williams.
Brett. So this group of people is working on making the activities more clinically relevant and more. And I think you guys have done an amazing job over the past however many years that we've been doing this to make it so. So I want to thank you guys also for doing that. Sobia asked, can we also talk about the post-session evals that the students do? Will they still do an eval after every session? That's the goal, because that's the way that we're getting information on which sessions need work and which ones don't. I know Rita is looking at perhaps shortening that or maybe condensing it somehow so that we don't have, and you can talk more about that if you want.
I think there is some unhappiness with those evals sometimes, just because like it's the whole veiled eval situation where sometimes people are like writing things that are kind of almost like hurtful, but not offering constructive criticism? Like, is there any thoughts on how we can improve that a little bit? I mean, I got very few comments, so like I'm not speaking necessarily, I got a couple here and there, but I know that this was a general problem. We can't talk about it.
Yeah, so you're right, and I'm sorry that that happens, Mita, and it actually happens less, I think, now than it used to. There is a session that I think you, Rita, and Jake put on at the beginning of the year about professionalism in evaluations that really
Yep.
stresses. And if you want to talk more about it, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we give the students examples of good evaluations, and by good I mean like professional and appropriate. So not necessarily that they love the session, but that they provide useful feedback and don't just write, this sucked. So we do that at the beginning of their M1 year. I don't know if it's worth like a booster shot of that, basically. I don't know. I mean, because I read the comments too, and I'm like, I don't really like being the messenger of all of them.
Yeah, and I always love how Rita's always like, keep in mind, because if she sees bad ones, so I appreciate you doing that and like kind of softening the blow. But I just think that I wonder if a little booster shot of that would be a good idea, if you guys don't mind.
That makes sense.
And also, Rita, the evaluation that they're doing is also an evaluation of the self-study material, of the disciplines, of the course director, and also of the clinician educator. So all of that gets encompassed in one evaluation. And I know there's ways you can kind of sift through that and say, this is for the self-study and this is for that particular case. And then they do evaluate that also at the end of the year, at the end of the course, where they're also evaluating the disciplines and the self-study material. So I don't know if there's a little bit of redundancy in that can be looked at to kind of sift out what's the clinician educator piece versus that. The response, especially as the year went on, the number of people responding and or actually with comments, as opposed to just filling the thing out and say, okay, 6 out of maybe 18 turn this in, or 10 out of 16 turn this in. So I think those were some of the issues that I was noticing.
Yeah, so a couple things. One is because of the way we pull the reports, I just have to, when I send you your CE evaluations, I just have to send the comments on the self-study guides and the activities, even though they're not your responsibility.
Right.
So definitely encourage ignoring those if you don't want to read them. We are going to make the session evaluations shorter next year. So we cut out a couple questions from actually the session, course, and faculty evaluations, with the hope that more students would fill them out since they're shorter. So, we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you want to see in the future then for making things better? Like, what ideas do you have, and what suggestions you see? It would really be better if we did this and didn't do that. If you have anything, if you don't, you can put in the chat or you can email me or whatever. But if there's something we can talk about, I'd love to hear.
I put this in the chat, but I think like incorporating some virtual with in-person, I think that could be really beneficial to both the students and the CEs. So not to say, I think it totally makes the basic sciences, like we need to go back in person for those, I feel like, because those are the ones they really value having in person. But some of these ones, like if you have to trek to campus just for like an hour session or something like that, it might be nice for them to get a little break.
And I'll just put a plug in as we're all coming back. I think, Rahul, you said maybe one group might rotate on a rotating basis, not come in. And I know for the groups that came in, they really liked coming in. My group was not one of those. And obviously,
Uh-oh. Syed, I don't know if you can hear us. We lost your audio, though. You may have to log out and come back.
It is a really high quality frozen image though, so utilize that as our picture of Syed.
Okay, well, while Syed sorts that out, is there anything else that anyone else
This brain
would like
saver.
to share?
Yeah, since I will just, I put it in the chat, but just to let everybody know that we do want to probably have a session eval for every session, even though it feels like overkill, and for the students, I'm sure it feels like it, but it is our only effective tool for telling if students actually stay for this session, other than, you know, getting marked off as present when they get there and then leaving. Which might sound a little bit harsh, but there are students who will do that. It has that additional function as well as getting the feedback, which is valuable.
Bob, do you actually track that and like hunt the students down who get marked as attending and did not complete the session eval? Because I'm going to be honest, I think that might have happened to me once or twice over the course of the year, and I probably don't even notice.
Right. So,
especially if it was virtual.
Yeah, only students who have like a pattern. I mean, because there's just so many students, and the number of students that might not have 100% attendance because they missed, like, you know, a couple of sessions, something happened across the year. But any student that has a pattern, it's like, looks like there's something going on with the student, that, yes, that would be a red flag. But a sort of one-off, or one student misses one thing, it's not worth tracking down. We're really looking at patterns of behavior.
I think there's a lot of important stuff from there that and students sometimes may say to me, hey, I'm leaving early, can I get the eval code early? And I will give it to them if they're honest and straightforward and tell me why they have to go. Sorry, I know I'm on video on one place and on sound the other, but
that's completely appropriate. I mean, if a student has a valid reason to leave, that's fine. I mean, you know, I don't want, you know, I don't want to make it so that this becomes impossible for people to manage. So yeah, don't feel, you know, don't feel any hesitance if you feel that it's a student who, you know, has put in the appropriate effort and has a good reason for leaving ahead of time, to go ahead and give them that code. I mean, I do that in my own small group session. How many new M1s are there? The entering M1 class is 157, which includes, I believe it's 5 returning students.
Yeah.
So something maybe, or 6, I can't remember the exact, but yes, it is a very big class. So yeah, the average small group will be more like 20 now.
when you talk about the returning students, does that mean someone who did not pass the first year? Do they repeat the whole year? Like, how does that work? Just for my understanding, I know I've seen a couple students in the past who had started previously.
Sure, and that depends on the student, quite honestly. You know, every student is a different circumstance. So it might be a student who had enough academic difficulties that they're coming back and repeating courses. It may be students who left during the course of the year because of health reasons and are coming back and repeating. Students who passed courses previously may come back and repeat, and they may be auditing those courses. So actually, that's something I'm glad you brought up. Thank you. Probably what we'll do, and actually I hadn't thought this through yet, and Rita, you're here as well. For students who are auditing, they're actually not allowed to take the session eval, the session assessment. They're not allowed to see any assessment. So we will have a handful, it's like 3 or 4, I think at most, who audit courses who will not take the session assessment. I don't know if and that probably won't affect any of you in any way, because you just make that available. You don't have to track in any way who takes it. And then Rita, you would know on the back end, right?
For session assessments, that would be.
Sorry, that would be a Jake thing, right?
Yeah.
Not eval, assessment.
Yes, and so that's a place that we should just be able to set this up so that those students aren't even going to be on the list to receive the assessment, so that there shouldn't be anything that you guys need to worry about for that small group of students.
Right. But their presence in class and their participation in class should not be different from anybody else. So there, I don't think we have any need to let you know who's auditing or not auditing. It would make no difference in terms of what they do in class.
So we would treat them exactly the same. We would give the session eval, session assessment code, and they can not use it if it's not appropriate for them.
They cannot just, right, they cannot use the session assessment.
Right. So they'll just ignore that part, but we treat them the same throughout the
Yep.
class.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it is something that Bob and I discussed a little bit of trying to make sure that we aren't unnecessarily stigmatizing them either. So, you know, we're just going to make it a blanket statement. Here's the session time. If you aren't going to take it, here's 15 minutes that you can study something else and look like you're busy if that's how you want to handle it. But from a technical perspective, I don't think there's anything that a CE would need to worry about.
The other thing I'll bring up, because we touched on it briefly, and I think there was some question as well. So as Rahul already said, we're going to try rotating with the BSI and the role sessions. And I know Lauren is here. There's maybe a slightly different approach for the communication skills small group sessions, but you guys don't run those. Of having each session, one of the 8 groups be on Zoom. And as Rahul said, we're anticipating there'll be more students not coming to campus for class. So there will be only 7 of the 8 groups on campus for class. For all of the roles and BSI sessions, we requested 550 A and B and also 450. So we'll have more room this time. There was a handful of sessions we could not get 450 as well. So those will be, then we'll have some other 2 other rooms to go to. So you might see things a little bit different in that respect from last year. So there'll only be, so we'll have 7 groups that we'll have to spread between 550 and 450 most of the time. So I would guess, I haven't actually thought of what the best plan was, because I was thinking we would have all 8, but now we'll have 7. So probably have 5 of those groups up in 550 and 2 of them in 450, or we could be 6 and it could be 6 and 1. I'm not sure which will work better. If it's 5, we might then actually keep that middle barrier open between the 2 big halves of 550 A and B, and just have the 5 groups spread around. We'll have to try and figure that out quickly. But at least the seating density is going to be lower than it was before when we were all on campus. And then again, where each group is located will be in an entrada. So it'll tell you if 450 or 550, or whether it's some other classroom when 450 wasn't available.
It'll also say on Entrada it'll be color coded if it's online. So if it's online, it'll be a lighter, it'll be a different color than the rest of your events that's in person. And I think, Bob, we have like 1 session that we had to do a BSI all online because of a room issue.
Yeah, you're right. I think there was one.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to make a segue to the tech side and we pop back up to the narrative assessment? Lauren and Jake, do you guys have to leave earlier, or do we need to?
Yeah, I don't want to.
I'm fine to go whenever you need me to.
Okay.
Yeah, as far as it's, if any of you need refresher on using the tech stuff in the room, first of all, I should point out, I am not anticipating that we will have like a tech person in the room sitting there through the session anymore. We have not gotten that support committed to us from IT. So at this point, I think the plan is for course directors to try and work with IT to have somebody there at the beginning of the session to make sure everything gets up and running start. We'll always have access to 3 class, which would get someone to you, might not be immediate, but it will get someone to you. But we won't have that kind of hand holding where we had someone in 550 through the whole session, in case something went wrong, they could address right away. The 450 and 550 are the same. Of those couple of sessions where we're in other classrooms, it's quite a bit lower tech stuff. It's those classrooms where they had the big podia at the front of the room. I do want to reinforce that bringing your laptop is always going to make it a little bit more complicated. The easiest thing to do, and you guys know better than I do, but it seems to me the easiest thing to do is to just have whatever materials you're going to use on a network drive that you can just get onto from the room computer, because then you don't have to try and worry about getting your computer hooked up to and talking to a monitor. But if you feel comfortable doing that, you've already done it every session and you know exactly what you're doing, far be it from me to tell you not to do it. But as a more casual user, you know, I've always found it easier just having my stuff on network drive, because then you can work with the computers in the room directly. The August 20 date is actually, we are going to have somebody from IT coming through, and we'll be in 550 to walk through the equipment there again. If anybody is interested and has the time to come by. They've also offered to make individual appointments. So we'll share the contact information if you can't make it to any times that we're trying to organize something, to contact them and make an appointment. Just have someone walk through the tech equipment in 550 with you. Am I missing something? I'm
No,
trying.
you hit the main points, and I just wanted to reiterate, now that you guys are going to be on campus and we have those firewalls with Google, we're not going to be able to have that Google link, you know, for people using Google link in the hub to view the PowerPoint, the CE PowerPoint. I'm not sure. Did you guys have any problems who were on campus in the spring using the Google PowerPoint while you were in the hub? Because we were thinking that we needed to put an actual PowerPoint file versus a link to the CE PowerPoint. So I was hoping to get some feedback from you all.
Princess, can you explain what a Google firewall means? I mean, does that mean we won't have access to our own Google Drive documents when we're using Rush equipment, or what exactly does
Yeah,
that mean?
on campus, Rush has this like defense thing. So when you're trying to open Google, it takes a really long time, or it may not open. On campus, it's kind of like a hit or miss when you're on the Rush Wi-Fi. And so when I was on campus recently and trying to open Google Files, it would stop. It would stop the file and say, like, you know, it's as a firewall for Rush, or it took a long time to load. So we're trying to see if we need to do both versions, have a Google version on, you know, for your CE PowerPoint, and have a PowerPoint version for ease, or just do the PowerPoint version. And I wasn't sure if people who did on-campus sessions for BBC, if they had any problems, because it would have been instituted then.
That doesn't affect other functions of Google, like Google Scholar, for example?
I don't think so. It was affecting Gmail. And so you weren't getting like notifications via Gmail or things like that on campus. And some CEs had noted that they couldn't open files when they were in their clinical spaces on campus. I'm not sure if that's been resolved, but that was one of the issues a few months ago. So you guys may know more than me now if you guys are still using your Google products on campus at the Rush main campus, if you had any problems with that.
As long as it was Google Drive, I was okay. You just can't use Gmail. Did
Okay.
anybody else have any other
Yeah.
issues?
A similar experience. We can do Drive fine.
You can Drive fine. Okay, well, that's great.
It's
That's
just
good.
annoying if they send it to your Rush email and then you try to open the Google Drive document through your Rush email, then that thing pops up again.
A defense
So like when people tag me to, like, you know, documents when we're designing stuff to my Rush thing, it's very annoying. Whereas if same thing, if I just open it in the Drive on campus,
then
no
you're fine.
problem.
Okay. So so that's great. That's great, because it makes it easier for us to not have to repost those things on the Entrada page. One of the things talking about technology is that there are some updates for Zoom and updates for Slack in the agenda that will send out via email. So we send it in a chat, we'll send it out via email because it has the links in. There are some updates that you'll need to do for Slack before September 1st, because there are some significant differences in functionality. And we're still planning to use Slack, as a communication method while you're in session. So there's an update for September 1st for people who have Macs. Specifically, it affects more, has a bigger impact people who have Macs. And there's also a Zoom update. There's a greater functionality and some more security. We hope that we don't have to change any of the passwords. Each time we have to touch the Zoom link, the university has enforced an automatic password. And so all the passwords for the groups, I think we experienced that towards the end of BBC, are just going to be the group number. So group 6 is the group 6 link if you're one of the rotating groups. And this also will be in the email as well. But note that there is a passcode or a link that has an embedded password as part of the Zoom interfaces, because it's a requirement now for all Rush Zoom links. Before you could have an authorization and not have to have a passcode, but Rush has chosen to have just one method of security, which is the password. So just keep note of that, and still having to log into your Rush account before you click on the links. We will be revising the Entrada pages this Friday in preparation for the upcoming blocks. There's no significant changes for Entrada. The only thing I wanted to note to you all is that I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with how to bookmark different courses in your course shell, and or that there are going to be some color coding that's not there now, but it's going to be there in probably the next week for the M1 courses that are going to be there. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
So here here is if I want, normally when you're trying to go to a particular course, I log into Entrada. I was going to have a dashboard. Because I'm med tech, I see all the groups and all the sessions. For you, you'll just see the teaching sessions that you're assigned to in the course. But if you wanted to see a particular course, usually you go to the courses and having to scroll down. And so one way if a course is active, you'll see a course on the side. Active means the course is live at the time. So when you go into your dashboard right now, you won't see foundations, or you won't see 561 host defense, hostess fonts, because those courses don't start until August 30th or September 6th, respectively. Once the course time begins, you will see the active courses on the left-hand side. But before then, you can go to the courses and scroll down. But if you click on any of the courses, I'm going to start off with, I'm just going to choose 561. And once you click on it, you can add a bookmark here. When you add a bookmark, you can rename it to whatever you want to do. I can just rename it to host defense or HDHR for now. And when you do that, you are able then to see it on your left-hand navigation. And so each time you come into your Entrada page, you don't have to go to courses and scroll down. It's perpetually there on your left navigation. You can also change the where the placement is and move it down somewhere else, or you can also, delete it later as well. It'll always take you to that bookmark navigation. That's kind of a cheat sheet that I tend to use since I'm in other courses as well, and that might be something that may be helpful to you. One other upgrade that's from Entrada is that when you go to your dashboard, so when you log in, there's two types of course views that you may see. You may see a My Calendar or teaching events for faculty, and you'll see a course calendar. The course calendar allows you to choose a particular calendar to see at one time. So some of you who have clinical are in clinical courses, you'll see all of your courses on the dashboard when you first come in. But if you just want to see one of them, you can go and type in any part of the name of that course. So if I wanted to, if I want to have 566, or if I don't know the number and say sexuality and reproduction, it also will come up as well. And when I click on that, see, click on it, I hit apply. And then I'm just going to be seeing the session for that block. So if you don't want to see all the courses, but just one course at a time, you're able to use the course calendar feature to be able to do that. You also can bookmark a community that you may be in. All of you should be part of the faculty information community. If when you join your dashboard, you do not have the RMC faculty information there, or if you click on the link at the beginning of the agenda and the access is denied, let myself or Agatha know so we can make sure that you have access, because this is where there's some information about different types of technology, different tips and things that we may have had in here that we may have shared with you otherwise. Okay. That was the main thing I want to talk about, the bookmarking. Oh, and subscribing to the Entrada calendar. So last thing is that when you're subscribing to the Entrada calendar, you guys are probably done this already. You want to click on the subscribe calendar button. You're going to make sure that you're subscribing to the calendar or that you're copying the link. It's no longer available for you to do a download the calendar, which was also kind of confusing in previous iterations. You can also subscribe to a particular course. You're going to make sure you don't download the course though, and you only subscribe, which is this grayed out version. Downloading it means that you have a snapshot of the events at that time. So if events change, your calendar will not reflect that change. So you always want to subscribe to the calendar versus downloading. Okay, I think those are the main tech stuff. Any questions before you bounce it to the narrative assessment, folks? Questions, concerns? Okay, doke. All right, I will turn over to Lauren and Jake and the assessment evaluation team. I think, oh, I see Ann too.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lauren Mack. I'm the new role leader for the communicator role, and I'm also on the narrative assessment team with Dr. James Wyatt and Jake, who is here, and Anne. I'm just speaking first, but we're all active team members. We have a short presentation to show you guys about narrative assessment. I know many of you are familiar with narrative assessment, but we want to make sure that everyone is very familiar with it and why we do it for our students and for our licensing requirements. I'll share my screen, and James is going to, I'm nominating him to lead us through the slides. James, are you game for doing that?
Oh, okay, sure.
Surprise!
Are you able to share?
Go for it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
If you can share them then, Lauren.
How's this looking for everybody?
It's good.
Great.
All right, let me fit it to my window so I can see it. Okay, so basically narrative assessment used to be something so rudimentary that when we used to teach a physicianship course and doctoring, we had narrative assessment being the scale of 1 through 3, discussing the level of student engagement. That was narrative assessment. And the only real narrative assessment they got was in communication skills when they met one-on-one, but that was more performance-based stuff and not truly what LCME envisions as this non-cognitive feedback. Okay, so that is something that is key. So prior to the last LCME site visit, we dramatically ramped up what we were doing. So we looked out at the world of best practices. What are other medical schools doing? What do we feel like we should do? And some schools were literally just typing up a few sentences and emailing to the students that and saying, that's the feedback. We said we want to do much better than those schools. So we want to make it a process and not just a form a student gets. So we started with the communication skills faculty and the anatomy faculty and the students doing a self-assessment. And then Lauren, can you hit the next one there? So the reason we're doing this is not just to satisfy LCME's element 9.5, but also to try to set student expectations for what professionalism means in the classroom, in the laboratory, prior to them getting into the clinic or into the emergency department or onto the floors. And we also want to try to do early identification of behavior or other problems before they become an even bigger issue, before they become patterns of behavior, and before this means sending them to COSEP or recommending dismissal. But we're also allowing the students to get used to getting told how they do things, because they went before from getting no feedback aside from course grades to getting a bucket load of feedback as clerkship students. So we want to acclimatize them to that process and also kind of make this formative over the first 2 years. Next slide. So again, as I mentioned before, it started with anatomy and comm skills faculty. We rolled you guys in last year as the CEs. The M1 and M2 students have been doing this all the way along. Next. The key here is just, you guys know your students, you know the ways in which they do things. And I understand, and Lauren understands, and Jake, and everyone gets it. It's harder to do this via Zoom. It's harder to monitor them and to visit the breakout groups and stuff like that. It's a bucket load easier to do this when you can observe them in person. But we want to think about everything that is, quote, non-cognitive, which, and non-cognitive is this stupid term that LCME means. Because to me, non-cognitive means coma, but apparently to them, it just means everything other than what they do in test performance, right? So it's not just what they got on their exams. This is all the other things that we've lumped into these observable categories of things like communication and professionalism and leadership and education and all these different, kind of like the CAN-MED roles that we build the curriculum around. So there are data sheets that you can have for each student, and you can choose to make notes across the course of the term, or you could try to observe a student in depth in one session or a handful of students in depth in one session, however you want to do this. And we know it's sampling of behavior. It's not you making accurate observations for the entire time. And the student will be using the exact same form to do a self-assessment. Next one. So there's these 4 categories, and it used to be a much longer document. We keep compressing it and compressing it over the years to make it less burdensome. So collaborator domain, leader educator, communication, and professionalism. And there are items that are exemplars of certain behaviors a student might do better on or worse on. And we have these categories of they need improvement, they're satisfactory on it, or it's a strength, or it's not observable, or it's not relevant in your domain, and space for free comments and space to identify if there's a red flag behavior. Okay, next one. So here's some examples of things that you might do. You might want to document notable behaviors that stand out as being really good, or just notable and neutral or negative. The clearer you can be, the more this will be helpful. Think about when you've got your clerkship students. They learn a lot from examples, and you might give them examples in the moment when they're working with you at the bedside. And you can't necessarily stop the class and go tell the students. So you might have to write something down, or at the end, make a note of, hey, when we were doing this particular block, covering this organ system or this pathway, I noticed that the student did a really good job of communicating this and leading their small group, or a great job at doing the teach back of this complicated topic, and here's how they did it. The more specific you can be, the more helpful it is for a student, because they remember this stuff and they hang on your words. They love it when a student sees that a faculty member has actually been observing them and actually knows them as a person, and not just this faceless, disembodied head on Zoom. But if you can make a clear recommendation and not just be constructive in your criticism, or sorry, not just be criticism in your criticism. I know we talked about feedback earlier in the Zoom today, but think about it. If you can have some suggestion of what you'd like to see not different, not just what needs improvement, but how they might try it. So for example, I had some other things. I can share screen in a minute and show you some examples of the good and the less good things. But use the not observable carefully. You can use it if you mean, I don't know for this student. Because again, there's all these check marks, and you don't have to document every single thing, right? We're not forcing you to rate every single thing. But what is certainly unhelpful is if you check NA for everything, or if you check strength for everything. That's not helpful. Because what we do, Lauren and I meet with the students one-on-one for a full half hour at the end of M1 fall, at the end of M1 spring, and at the end of M2 fall. And we go through the evaluations. We do not show you your comments word for word. We'll sanitize it if there's something that was a little, too strong for a student. We'll make it a little more palatable, a little easier to discuss with them. But we also put it in context of, hey, here's the feedback that 3 different faculty members had about you in 3 very different settings, B-size stuff and comm skills and anatomy lab. And we also pair that with the student self-assessment to see how did this stuff gel together? To what extent is it consistent or inconsistent? So next slide is actually what I'm already narrating this one here. Well, let's flip to the next one then. So there are deadlines, and OIME will do as they always do, a wonderful job in rolling these forms out in Entrada so that they're available to you. But there's a template. So for example, one of the things that I'll do is each time I have a small group session for comm skills or one-to-one meetings with students, I'll keep this form in mind and I'll add just a little bit to it. And I'll think about it like a student's portfolio across the term. I understand it's tougher, or we understand it's tougher for CEs because you have a revolving group of students. But what Lauren does a lot of time on at the beginning of each term is figures out for each one of you, which one of you has a group of students the most, and hence the most chances for observations of behavior. And you're the person she will reach out to and ask to participate, okay? So if you get a request from us to do this, it's not just that you're an agreeable, nice, kind person. It's also that you are somebody who will have the best opportunity to observe and comment on this group of students and to provide them this valuable feedback to help shape their behavior early on so that they'll be even better and even more helpful for you as clerkship students and elective students in M3 and 4. Okay. Do I still have a minute? I'm sorry, I didn't see exactly when we stopped here. So Lauren, if you could stop sharing for just a second, and I don't know if I can share. These are, let's see if I can. It'll stop someone else's sharing. I'm going to share. Here we go. Here are examples that I just pulled this morning from the spring term this past year. So these are some examples of what are some of the more helpful comments. All of these are from BSci instructors. The bottom one was from anatomy, but it just showed a good example of being specific. I'll give people a minute to read this, and I will not be the annoying person who reads their slides. But you see how each one of these comments is actionable. Each one of these comments, if it's constructive criticism, it tells them what you'd like to see. If it's just purely praise and pointing out something they're doing well, it's specific enough that they know what they're doing well, so they know to continue doing that, right? Now, I've filled out a ton of these evals over the years for clerkship students. I get it. There's times when we feel like we just don't know that student well enough, and we do the stuff that you see on the right. Plays well with others, no major, no significant weaknesses noted, that kind of stuff. Keep on reading, all those things that we say sometimes in clerkship evals that fill up space but are entirely meaningless. So the more details you can use, the more specific to the student, the better. Okay. Same thing. If you're checking off just strengths all the way through, that's not helpful. That doesn't help us discriminate within a student their areas of strength and their areas of when they could develop skills.
We want to make sure that we take a moment to thank you all who are in this group today who have done the narrative assessments last year. We were asked specifically by the students to have the B-side CEs participate, and we really appreciate your participation. And we're excited for you to participate again this year. Are there any questions about the process or about anything really that we could help with now, or just comments that could help us make the program even better?
I think I just want to add, as the current chair of COSEP, how often that committee says, oh my goodness, why didn't we catch this behavior earlier? And that's one of the things that this process is elegant at doing. Before it gets to the level of an early concern note, or before it gets to the level of referring to the student for COSEP for unprofessionalism or fitness for duty or whatever, to catch this stuff earlier, to praise the stuff they're doing well so they know what to continue doing, to boost their spirits because they see that you recognize that the hard work that they're doing, trying to be a leader, trying to do teach backs, trying to participate in the big group discussions, stuff like that. And also the fact that we're catching some of the behaviors that could be problems should they continue, and we're giving them a roadmap of how to improve those early on before they become more malignant patterns of behavior. That's awesome. This is something that really helps us graduate better quality colleagues and folks who are more functional in not just taking tests well, not just doing well on boards and STEP and so forth, right?
We have some questions that have come in. Keith, yes, we can absolutely send the items on the form around to everyone in advance, even if you're not participating in, for some reason, in that particular round. We want everyone to know what the items are. And then, Anne, these occur 2 times for the M1 students. So before the winter break, in December, we do 1 round. And then we do another round in June, right at the end of the year. And then for the M2 students, we only do 1 round just because it's a shorter year for them. And we usually do that round at the end of January, beginning of February. I hope that is helpful.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe if to combine the two, if the items on the form could be included like with each packet that we receive or part of just our material, just it'd be nice for me to have a reminder to, oh yeah, I need to be watching the group and making some notes for myself on specific students. That would be nice to have a venue to do that.
Great idea.
And to your point, one of the things that Jake is going to be helping us with is trying to figure out the user friendliness of the evaluation system. It's kind of locked into Entrada right now, but are there ways we can make it easier to use? In my dream world, it's that we have an iPad that has the picture of all the students and you poke on the face of the student and it brings up the form and you can tap a couple quick notes and then it goes back and you go back to your teaching and then you would just use this as you're floating around.
That
the
would be
breakout groups.
great.
Wouldn't that be something lovely and amazing?
Yeah, that would be amazing. That would help me with student names too.
And the cool thing is Rahul promised to support this technology. So we're there. It's awesome.
James is announcing that he's leaving Rush and moving to Google. So
yeah, I feel like I got to set up a little bit there. But yes, I think all of those points, we really want to cut as much of the middle space out of it, even if we can't have special iPads and fancy user interfaces.
Wow.
We do want to make it a lot easier for you to connect what you're seeing and what you're experiencing with your students with those people.
I know we are short on time, so we will, we're available if anyone has any questions for our team, please let us know. And again, thank you so much for your past and future participation. It's really helpful to the students. Thank you.
Thanks.
Awesome. So I think we just had some updates for BCS as well. Agata, do you want to just explain them? And then of course, Christine, if we miss anything, or did you want to show that slide that you had? Either or, it's up to you.
Dr. Tsai, do you want to talk about BCS or would you prefer me to?
Why don't you start and then I'll chime in with any reasoning or anything else since we're the coordinator.
Yeah, so I'll share my screen. Can everyone see my screen? Yeah. Okay. So BCS, as we all know, just a quick little thing, it's a mandatory activity that students have to do during the end of their M1 year, during BBC, during the summer, and then they do it 3 times during their M2 year, twice during the fall, and once during the spring. So the main changes we have is for BCS recruitment this year. We want, this was sent in an email by Dr. Usabe at the beginning of the summer, I believe, and I can resend the email with all of this information as well. But currently we are gonna have students start recruiting their own patients. So their first BCS, which they've already completed in the summer, we find and assign the patients for the students. So the CEs do, and the curriculum team helps out with the recruitment on the back end. For their first BCS in the fall coming up, we'll get a list of patients for the students, but we want the students to go in and recruit the patients by themselves. So ask if it's okay for them to do a history and physical with the patient. We did provide a sample script here that the students can use. So You can change this. This is the time, BCS2 during the fall, this is the time for you to share your tips, tricks, secrets with the students that you might have up your sleeves. And then for the third BCS in the second part of fall and in the spring, the students are going to be finding and interviewing their own patients by themselves, and then they will come to their assigned BCS time to just do their presentation with you and submit their HMPs. Any questions on patient recruitment or anything you want to add, Dr. Tsai?
Well, Meeta had a good question. How do we know they didn't just make it up? And I had the same thought yesterday. I was like, well, what if they just took like an explore patient or something else? I mean, part of it, I guess you don't know then. I can say that this came out of two things. One, I think sometimes CEs, you know, for us, it's like very rushed to try to find these patients, and the students then, yeah, that's right, Scott. That maybe that's the best thing to do, is just bring the MRN. You know, the students, I sometimes don't have enough time, especially like on the GMF patients that have been there a while. They end up not doing their physical exam and those sorts of things. And then, yes, Melissa, that we thought about having like a sign up just to make sure that they're not all showing up, like, you know, if 17 students that show up after class on one particular day. But it came because Susan Glick at UChicago said the students often find their own patients. And the goal was to try and just give them a little bit more time to actually take a full history. And then also it saves on our time as clinician educators, where, you know, we have to show up, do all this work, and then we sit around for a little bit while they do their thing. It seemed to work okay. You know, we were starting to do it last fall until like we got shut down again with the second surge. And some students like it. It's inherently uncomfortable, right? It's uncomfortable for us going into random rooms. It's sort of uncomfortable for them. But at the same time, we've all been in times where, you know, you walk into the ER on GMF and you've asked like 50 people and they're all like, they're great, but they're at procedure, or they're great, but, you know, whatever may be, or there's just not enough in this one particular hour. And one of the thoughts is like, you know, if you show up in the hospital, especially on GMF after 6 o'clock, a lot of people are back just like hanging out. And those patients might be more willing to take some time. But we're certainly open to feedback, and it is, you know, admittedly a trial. So certainly if you have any other concerns, please let us know. But the goals were to really give the students more time to take a thorough history, and then to offload our time as clinician educators is sort of a byproduct, not the main product, but it does help.
Christine, could I just comment on something that was brought up about, you know, students making up patients? I think you probably do want to make sure students know that you may spot check, or I think the MRN would be one way you could do it, but they need to know that that's being monitored, because Keith, I know, is here. He can probably remember. It's very, very rare, but in the previous, I guess, iteration of what we had, the student continuity experience, there were a small number of occasions when students actually did invent patient encounters, and which is an incredibly serious thing. So very, very rare, but very, very serious when it happens. So they do need to know that it's being monitored. And then we actually do have to monitor it.
Yeah, we actually had one student who made up her entire semester-long experience of patient encounters.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's committed.
Yeah, and I don't know if we spot check is probably the way to go. Yeah. All right, Kuma. And then, you know, we have sometimes talked about, and I don't know how you guys feel as clinicians, this is sort of a different topic, but when it comes to enrichment and like challenging students, it's usually a pattern. And Bob, you know, and James, like when we're down on the ground, we don't always know the pattern. You know, over time, if you've had a student over a semester, you kind of see like, maybe something's up, but it can sometimes be helpful. I don't know if we can get a heads up a little bit when there are difficult patients, or a leaf can get a heads up or something like that, and we can assign certain students a certain faculty, but that's probably outside the scope of this meeting.
Did you guys have an issue when you guys did it on pilot this, where too many students were showing up?
I don't think so. You know, some of it is that because they're already naturally very staggered, right? We only have 20 students per day that we're doing BCS. It isn't so bad. I think if we were to if we found this successful and then we started clumping BCS where we had like, you know, like more CEs doing it or something like that, then it could become more of an issue if all the students are trying to do it the night before. But I'm not Elif might be able to answer better, but I'm not aware we had any issues. And part of it is that I think students really do want to, get a chance to practice and get feedback. So it's probably the rare student that is going to make it up. On the other hand, it's probably that's the student that probably needs the most practice and the most help with their medical education. But I'll bring the MRN thing to Elif.
Did anybody have any problems with the SharePoint site that we used to see your patients if we were giving you patients? I think it's linked in that. Oh, Duo. Never mind. But so sorry, I forgot about the Duo.
Gosh darn Duo. Sorry. There we go.
I think at the home one, very top.
Yeah, I think I have it here. I have it saved. There you go.
Christine, did you see the chat from Stelios about peds patients?
Honestly, I did not because I was messaging Elif before I forgot.
Okay, and I don't know if anyone else here saw this, if they have any way to answer it. I mean, I know you don't see peds patient, but.
I think it's okay. I mean, I know that in previous years, something blanking on his name, the neurologist would just walk to his floor or, wherever, as long as the patients are appropriate and able to give a history, I personally think it's fine. We have just traditionally stuck with medicine and ER because they've been the most open to having students. And even then on medicine, I don't think people are super thrilled. And then, oh yeah, Kuma has some interesting points about pairing them with a third or fourth year who's on their rotation. That sometimes can be helpful. Other schools do that. So I'm laughing, but we don't have that structure right now. A lot of them have like these little medical homes and they have the same continuity clinic and all those sorts of things. That might be a larger curriculum question to be asking about how we do what we do. And I don't know how, but Bob and Rahul, I'd be curious and Princess, if we could make something like that happen where they get a little bit more pairing. But you're right. I mean, that's what we do because on IM Collect 2, I have to do observed H&Ps. And sometimes we can't even find one. Our team will walk over to the next team and be like, hey, do you have a good patient for us? And then, that's sometimes one of the easiest ways. I was hoping that what would happen for BCS2, this first fall one, was that we would take the students to the workrooms and basically teach them how to get patients, right? The way that Paul Kentz gets them, he goes to the charge nurse and say, hey, do you have any good patients? I think that's a very easy and reasonable way to do it because especially on medicine, they know who's difficult and which rooms to avoid and who typically is pretty nice. Going to the resident workrooms, which are all located on one, for the most part, on one at the end of the hallway, can be kind of reasonable as well.
Okay. Thanks, Agata. Our last thing is just logistics. We just wanted to make sure that we are able to, there's some, I think we did the new thing this year by having your own CE dashboard. So you're able to see your individual sessions before they're inputted in Entrada. And all your Entrada sessions for the academic year for M1, M2 should be in Entrada by next week. M1s are being loaded on, I think, early next week. M2s are already in there. You also can see your Entrada, your overall schedule by going to your dashboard and finding your name and then clicking on to be able to see your actual schedule. If your schedule is if you have the total number of required sessions that Raul talked about earlier, FV2. So if you have, you know your appointments, if you're below the number of your required appointments, we ask that you look at any of the open sessions that still may be available and see what fits into your schedule, particularly the ones that are in September and in October, because we have quite a few that are in September and October that we still need some help on. And so we have right now about 19 sessions that we have open. But the ones that are in September and October, we really need folks to see if any of those fit into your schedule because we're short SCE for those sessions, usually 1 or 2. Additionally, if you guys have been awesome in using the Airtable sign up form, and thank you so much for your patience as we were getting your schedules together this year. It was really super duper helpful to get basically you gave us your whole lives and it was so helpful for us to make sure that we didn't have any conflicts for you. And so if there's any issues or concerns or anything, please feel free to let us know. And as usual, you know, Agata will send out any requests for if we are short or things like that. And we'll send out materials that we talked about today. So next steps, you'll be able to access this video recording in the faculty communities section in Entrada. And if you're interested in doing the tech time for the hub space next week, please let us know that, because I know, Bob, there wasn't a particular sign up piece is going to be available, but it'll be good for us to be able to let him know so we can anticipate how many faculty may be coming. So Sylvia, so she's interested. So definitely you can just reply to us and let myself or Agata know, and then we'll make sure that the folks are available. Since most of the people were here today, if they're also Christine mentioned a great thing. If there is any faculty development that Bob also had mentioned as well that you're interested in, please let us know as well, so we can also plan for future development experiences. And we will be reaching out for people who are doing the advocate sessions for some professional development as well. Bob or Raul, have I missed something?
I only have 2 things I was going to add. One is just throw out for faculty development if this group would be interested in having a session with the medical student affairs people, the student support people. So when students are struggling academically, you know, the medical student affairs unit in our office provides the academic support services to those students. Would be helpful for you guys, or any interest you think in hearing from them and what the processes are with students who are struggling academically. Just an idea that popped in my head that this group might be interested in. The second thing I was going to bring up was, you know, which is sometimes controversial, I guess, is this issue of taking breaks during sessions. I still want to encourage everyone to do that. I base that kind of on the simple analysis that I've frequently had students saying, I wish we could take a break, but other students kind of want to push us through. I've never had a student saying, I wish we could put through, but other students are making me take a break. So, you know, again, I know that, you know, you have to use your own judgment about when it makes sense to try and push through and when not. But I think having breaks is really important. Less so now that we're not going to be, hopefully not be on Zoom all day. But even despite that, I every year have here and there, not like dozens, but students will comment to me and it's like, I wish we could take a break, but so-and-so is always pushing our group to try and get done. And I feel reluctant to speak up and that sort of thing. So please, please, please do schedule at least one break for a multi-hour session, classrooms. Okay, that's my only other request to the group.
Thanks, Bob. And as Keith mentioned, there are some accommodations that students may have, and so they may not feel comfortable in expressing it across a larger group. So we'll still have those breaks built into your schedule. Of course, you guys, as always, use your judgment where it will fall naturally in your session, but definitely we want to make sure that we are taking those breaks because we did have complaints when we were on campus about not having breaks as well. So it wasn't just a Zoom space. Okay. Is there any other questions or concerns that we haven't addressed that we should, or something that you would like to see in the future? Okay, I think I'll take that silence as no. Okay. Well, thank you all so much for taking time. We really appreciate you. We literally couldn't do any of this without you. So really appreciate all you guys' hard work and sharing your expertise. And you're one of the reasons why students come here. So really appreciate working with you guys and look forward to a successful fall. Okay. All right. Thank you,
everyone.
everybody.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Man.
Bye.
Bye.